When the bus speaks, we listen. Big Deke News. Jerome Bettis went on the Dan Patrick Show a few days ago and was asked about the NFL's hot button topic right now, the value of the modern day running back. The bus had an interesting perspective that I thought was worth sharing.
So let me tell you how it all started. It started because college football went to a more wide open style of football, maybe let's say about 10 years ago, right? Everybody started to want to throw the football around. And what happened was the high schools saw that. And then if you're a high school kid and you want to go to college, you're looking at the landscape. If you were 6'2", 220 pounds, all the colleges wanted small running backs. So you went to linebacker and instead, right? So now what we see happening after all these years is that if you don't go to Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio State, you're not going to play running back if you're 215, 220 pounds, right? So now these kids, the talented kids, are switching positions.
There's obviously exceptions to what the bus is talking about here, but I get what he's saying. It does feel like the college game has gone a little bit more running back by committee approach, just like the NFL. And that's probably just due to their spread offenses and how they run things in college. They like speed. They like more scat backs. These guys are more interchangeable. So that's interesting. I never really thought of it that way. You do obviously see the college game influencing the professional game over the last decade. In the NFL, you see a lot more like spread offenses, mobility from the quarterbacks, doing read options, that type of stuff. But I just never really thought about how it affected the running back position. Like the bus is right. If you're 6'2", 230, what is your best path to carving out a niche, whether it is in college football or also in the pros? It might be wiser to either go receiver, you go linebacker, you go safety, whatever it is. To me, it's just the state of the game right now. It is what it is. Not saying it's fair, not saying it's right, because part of me does feel bad for running backs. These dudes take a beating. They got to do so many different things and aren't able to get their big money until after they put in a ton of work for their first 3 or 4 years. But at the same time, if you're a GM, let's just be real. Where are you ranking the running back position on the hierarchy of important positions on your team? It is last. It is. Let's just talk about offense. You're paying your quarterback, you're paying your O-line, receivers, and tight end before running back. That's what I would do at least. I think it's because the market, I don't want to say oversaturated, but it's saturated with really, really good players. Like right now, the guys in the league from 1 to 32, you go down to 32, you can find a good running back. Like I'm looking at the PFF RB rankings right now. At 28, they have Rashad Penny. At 29, A.J. Dillon. At 30 is Zeke Elliott. He still had like 900 yards last year. I know he's a little bit more on the decline. Cam Akers at 31. David Montgomery at 32. David Montgomery is a solid running back. If he can stay healthy and he can get the touches, he'll produce. But that is the 32nd ranked player on the PFF RB ranking. So you mean to tell me if you're a team and you have the option of paying a running back like 15, 16 million a year, or paying a dude like Rashad Penny or Leonard Fournette's out there in free agency like $2 or $3 million per year, and then you could use the difference between that 16 minus like 2 or 3. So you have $13 million to work with. You could spend that on a corner. You could spend that on an offensive lineman, like whoever. You mean to tell me you wouldn't go that approach? And then to top it off, like I mentioned, you could find quality RBs at any point in the draft. Hell, you don't even have to draft guys. Tony Pollard, 4th round. Dameon Pierce, 4th round. Jaylen Warren, undrafted. Austin Eckler, undrafted. Isaiah Pacheco, 7th round. Ramondre Stevenson, 4th round. Tyler Algier just ran for 1,000 yards last year in the 5th round. And even if you want to target a running back earlier in the draft to make sure you get a guy, most of the time you don't even have to go 1st round because studs are found in the 2nd round all the time. And sometimes the first running back isn't even taken until the 2nd round. Jonathan Taylor, 2nd round. Dalvin Cook, 2nd round. Nick Chubb, 2nd round. So you guys see what I'm saying? There's just a lot of good running backs. And I feel like, for the most part, the RBs are only as good as the offense around them. We witnessed that firsthand with Le'Veon Bell. There's no question he was a top 3 running back in his prime. But he leaves Pittsburgh and goes to the Jets, and he's absolutely forgotten about. I even think of Saquon Barkley just a couple years ago. Dismal season, 3.7 yards per carry. Fast forward to last year, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, 57 receptions, 338 yards receiving. Like, what changed? Did Saquon Barkley improve his game that much? No, he's always Saquon Barkley. If anything, he got a year older, which typically spells problems for running backs. No, they went from Joe Judge being their coach to Brian Dable. Brian Dable, offensive-minded guy, good scheme. And then Danny Dimes in 2021, Barkley's bad year. Danny Dimes was playing bad, or he was hurt, so they could focus on Barkley. Also, the Giants had a worse O-line in 2021 compared to 2022. That being said, again, I think it's fair to have the running back on the lower end of the totem pole whenever you're talking about position importance hierarchy. We've seen it just too many times in the past where you could plug and play these dudes, and the backups are damn near putting up to 80 to 90% of the production of the RB1. Like, I wonder in this Saquon Barkley scenario, or Josh Jacobs, or Tony Pollard, these guys that are getting franchise tag, if they sit out and one of these teams sign a Leonard Fournette, you mean to tell me if he goes to the Raiders, he goes to the Giants, he goes to the Cowboys, and he's getting the same amount of workload as Barkley, Pollard, or Jacobs, that he's not at least putting up 80 to 90% of their production, while you're probably paying him, I was going to say 80 to 90% less, but Fournette's still probably at least looking for something between 3 to 5 million. Barkley, Pollard, Jacobs, they were looking for more than 10, so like damn near $8 to $9 million less. You could have Leonard Fournette on your team versus those other guys, and again, I think he's going to put up pretty much the same amount of numbers and have the same amount of impact. So you tell me why it makes sense to be paying running backs big money. Not saying it's fair, not saying it's right, anything like that, but again, it just is what it is. I think the NFL is way more of a passing game now. Like, literally, the rules are set up as such for it to be more beneficial to pass, whether it's you can't hit the quarterback a certain way, cornerbacks are less physical with receivers because they'll get flagged for it, the pass interferences, like all that, it's set up for a more open style, which has devalued more of the middle of the field. So you got the running backs and the linebackers not being as critical to teams, or at least being this devalued, because obviously they still are important, but you don't have Eddie George's, Jerome Bettis's, Emmitt Smith's just literally carrying your team. Like, your offense ran through those guys. But I will say this, with the league going more finesse over these last 10 years, I do think it has opened up some loopholes in a way. Like, with everyone going finesse, like, how do you beat finesse? All right, you go ground and pound, you go bully ball, which is something the Bus also talked about on Dan Patrick's show. And he thinks this is the type of style that could benefit the Steelers for 2023.
I wonder if you get a team that just says, we're going to be different than everybody else. We don't have a franchise quarterback. We're going to have a good offensive line. We're going to run the football. We're going to keep you off the field. And we're going to, play really good defense.
I think that's the recipe for what you're going to see in Pittsburgh. I think Kenny Pickett is going to be a special quarterback. He's still developing. And while he's developing, I think you're going to run the football. You got to run the football. So yeah. I think you're still going to see that philosophy quite a bit. But you have to have that special running back. It's easy to say we're going to do that. But, King Henry, he's a special running back. You could do that around him.
There's no question that running the ball and playing good defense will always be an awesome strategy for success in the NFL, no matter the era. But I guess it comes down to, how important do you think the running back is, an individual running back, to the running game for these offenses? Because I saw, 3-4 years ago, the Rams go through C.J. Anderson in the playoffs to make it to the Super Bowl. I saw the Chiefs win it all this year with a 7th-round pick in Isaiah Pacheco, and then just a couple years before that with another running back who's now out of the league in Darrell Williams, But in the Super Bowl, he went off for like 120 and 2 touchdowns. So you tell me if it's more about the individual running back and not taking away anything from individual running backs, because there are tier lists. There are running backs that are better than others. But in terms of constructing a team and really trying to win a Super Bowl, is that what you're focused on? Or are you more focused on building up everything around that running back and still having success in the running game no matter who you have out there? But that's it in terms of this edition of Big Deke News on a Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe out there, and peace.